Pari, thanks so much for doing this interview.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So one of the things that I like to talk about is just sort of what motivated you to want to have a career in ADR. Like, what was your first interaction with ADR, and what was your first interest in looking at this as a career?
I think it's actually kind of funny because throughout my life I can see examples of times where I was exposed to ADR and just didn't know it. I think that in my family life there was a lot of mediation. We had a big family and a lot of different cultural differences in my family. I can think of times in school where I was doing peer mediation, and especially in elementary school we had a peer mediation program, so I was involved with that. But it was really when I went to law school and was searching for justice and couldn't find it anywhere within the walls of the law school that I decided that I needed an alternative. And luckily we had a mediation clinic at Chicago Kent, and that's where I became exposed to the Center for Conflict Resolution and mediation within the legal system. And basically within the first hour of my training, I just decided this is what I want to do. This makes sense, and we hadn't really gotten into any of the mediation parts yet. It was like, this is where the elevators are in the building. I was like, yes, this is the place I want to be.
You already knew.
Yeah.
So when you were taking that training, you were finishing up your law degree, how did you go about making the decision that you wanted to create a career in dispute resolution?
Well, I was lucky because I took the mediation clinic after my 1L year, so during the summer, which is pretty early. Typically, it's 2Ls or 3Ls, more at my school, 3Ls. And so it gave me a couple of years to volunteer through our community mediation center, the Center for Conflict Resolution, and it was sort of always there in the background. I think originally I thought that I wanted to do like labor and employment work and mediation within that context, and then I was told that nobody can be a mediator without being 100 years old and have 1,000 years of experience. And so I think that...
What was it like to get that type of advice? Because that's not, unfortunately, that's not rare. That is the norm. So can you just talk a little bit about what your reaction was when people were like, nope, not going to happen?
Well, it was off-putting. I basically decided that they were wrong, that there had to be another way. Luckily, I am in a community here in Chicago where there are a lot of people who are not retired that are doing this work. And seeing that there were other places to be able to do that, there were other ways to get that experience, was really meaningful to me and actually drew me more towards ADR and more away from the traditional legal community. And I think that was because the answer from the traditional legal community was, no, you can't do that. And the answer from the ADR community was, there's got to be a way. Let's figure it out, which is so ADR, right?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So what was your path? Like, can you talk about after you graduated, sort of what your path has been to becoming the training director?
Yeah, I really took advantage of the relationships that I made through the clinical experience that I had at Kent with the mediation clinic, the relationships that I built as a volunteer. When people ask me how to get a job in the field, I say just keep going back until they hire you. Basically, make yourself useful. So I actually stayed on as a volunteer at CCR for 2 years, and then I became a trainer during the summer that I was, studying for the bar exam. And then, as I was actually training as a volunteer when, actually it was you. When you let me know that somebody was leaving a position at CCR, which is a very small nonprofit, 14 people on staff, full-time, and it was the connections that I had built where once I applied, it was easier to say, look, I have a demonstrated commitment to this organization and a passion for this work. And I think that's the important thing, is that if you want to get a job in ADR, there aren't a lot of them, and having experience, passion, drive for this type of work really resonates with the people who are doing the work.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And it seems to be the theme for the folks that sort of have overcome that hurdle of being told, like, no, you can't do this, that it is that passion and that dedication and kind of that you know, relentlessly, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure out a way that they're able to land some type of position. What is it like for you today after you've been graduated?
5 years.
5 years. So what is it like today to be able to say that you're working in ADR full time?
Well, when people ask me what I do for a living, I have my dream job. This is the job that I wanted to do when I was in law school. This is the work that I wanted to be doing. Now I am more in an academic side of teaching mediation, teaching workshops on negotiation, conflict management, communication, and it's really the most rewarding work I can imagine doing because it's skills that make people function better in the world, that make people communicate better, get along better, work together better. We did a training over the summer where somebody told me, one of our trainees, he was retired, he was looking at trying to find something to keep his interest, and he said, I may never be good at this, but this has made me a better person. And that kind of feedback, I mean, it's rare, I think, that you work in a place where people say the work that you're doing makes me feel like I'm a better person. And that's meaningful. That's everything I could dream of in a job.
Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess the last question would be, and you already started to answer this, but as you now work with law students and young people who have found a passion for this field and have decided that this is what they want to do, what advice do you give them?
Be creative. Look for opportunities. Sometimes the opportunities that you need are the ones you create.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't find work in this field, find something related, find something that you can incorporate these skills in. I know that a lot of people use these skills in just a variety of ways, if not traditional mediation, using them in mentorship capacities, using them in HR capacities. Be creative and don't forget about it. Because when the opportunities do come up and they are there and they do happen, you want to remember that was something that you were interested in and capitalize on them when they happen.
That is very good advice. Anything else you'd like to share for anybody who might be watching this?
Just, I think always practice the skills. Always practice the skills. And in your day-to-day interactions, in your professional life, practice ADR as a lifestyle, and you'll be able to find a way to make it part of your work.
That's cool. Whatever your job title is, these ADR skills can play a role.
Exactly.
I love it. Thanks so much, Pari, for taking the time doing this.